Good Wednesday to everyone. We are in John for our second week of John, and we will be in John 1:19 through 28. So let's just go ahead and read that. Now, this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, "I am not the Messiah." They asked him then, "Who are you? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you a prophet?" He answered, "No." Finally, they said, "Who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, "I am the voice of the one calling in the wilderness. Make straight the way of the Lord." Now the Pharisees who had been sent questioned him, "Why then do you baptize if you are not the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor a prophet?" "I baptize with water," John said. "But among you stands one who you do not know. He is the one who comes after me, the straps of whose sandals I am unworthy to untie." This all happened in Bethany on the other side of the Jordan where John was baptizing. May God add his blessing to the reading and hearing of his word. So, what is going on here? What's John up to? John is simply identifying who he is in relationship to who they are, who he is in relationship to Jesus, who he is in the world at that time. He is not a prophet. He is not the Messiah. He is John. He is Jesus' cousin. He is the baptizer. He knows Jesus. He has known Jesus his whole life. If we go back to even before he was born, he leapt for joy in his mother's womb. So John is saying these things as someone who is intimately familiar with who Jesus is. And yet, he does not claim to even be a prophet. So why did the people who came to question him, why were they asking about John being the Messiah? Well, because they're constantly on the search for the Messiah. They are trained to be on the lookout for the Messiah. And there are still Jews today that have that same drive and urge to constantly be looking for and waiting for the Messiah. So another question that pops into my head when I read this, why the reference to Isaiah? The reference to Isaiah is for the Pharisees' sake. Let that sink in for a second. He references the Old Testament prophet Isaiah to get their attention. They would have been familiar with this passage. They would have been familiar with Isaiah saying, "I am the one in the wilderness, crying in the wilderness." And John is the fulfillment of that prophecy. But why is that important? Why is it important to make the distinction? And so I read the NIV version. In the ESV, this is what it says. Now this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask who he was. The addition of Levites at that point is to say, like, there were people who were invited into the Holy of Holies, only the Levites are able to do that, were sent to talk about who this Messiah was. I need to pause this recording because today the verse of the day is, "I baptize you with water," John replied, "but among you stands one you do not know. He is the one who comes after me, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie." That's the one that we're going to try to memorize. So take it for what you will. What does all this mean? This passage establishes John as a prophet, even though he denies being a prophet. Um, he is a prophet. He is preparing the way of Jesus, and he foreshadows his interactions with Jesus um, in this. But it's also important to recognize that John is calling out the Messiah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So there was a lot of confusion around John the Baptizer among the people. You can read that. You can read that who do you say that you are? So, um, and we've already talked about John answering. I'm out of my flow since I took that Cat Daddy, I'm gonna come over here for a second. We don't mute anybody that doesn't agree with you. We mute people that are rude. We mute people that want to talk about only sex and sexuality. Um, if really, it's if you're rude. And we give multiple tries every single day. Like lots of times I'll only mute for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and then you get to come right back in. Just gonna put you in a little timeout, let you cool down and decide to use different words. That's all. Now I'm gonna jump back over here. This is gonna have to be edited pretty heavily at this point. People are texting me. Imaging. Image. Imaging. People are texting me. People are calling me. Have a great day too, Holly. Randy, how many times are you gonna ask? I don't care about the pronouns, and I know that somebody already answered that. He, she, they, it. I don't care. Anywho, back to this whole. Thank you for muting them. I appreciate it. My multitasking is not great though. My multitasking kind of sucks. I'm trying to do too many things at once because I feel like I'm running out of time. Okay. They had high expectations of the Messiah. They had high expectations of the Messiah. They're looking everywhere constantly for the Messiah at this point. It has been 400 years since Malachi was written. They haven't even had a prophet in 400 years. So they are desperately searching for who is going to save them. So when they come to John the Baptist, they are with expectation. Please tell us that you're the Messiah. Please tell us that you are who we've waited for. But of course, he says, I am not. I am not even worthy to untie the sandals of the one who comes behind me. It's interesting, though, that they ask, are you Elijah? Are you Moses? These were prophets that they were well versed with, etc., etc. So that is why all of this is happening right here, right then, the beginning of John still. I think it's important that we understand and accept that as Christ's witnesses, sometimes we are the voice in the wilderness. What are you doing to call out Christ's presence in the world? So later on in John, we will read that don't be surprised when the world hates you because they hated me first. We live in a society that this is the wilderness. Now, I don't know that the world is actively hating us or, like seeking to destroy us or anything, but we are not popular. True Christ followers are not popular people because we are called to hold people accountable for their behavior. And sometimes that voice feels like it's definitely in the wilderness. Why mention the location at the end? This is something that I've asked myself multiple times while going through this, and I cannot find a good answer. I can't find a good answer of why they mentioned that all of this happened in Bethany. I don't know. Um, I think it's more important, though, that we ask a question that I haven't made a slide for because I didn't have this question until this morning. So this morning I was reviewing this because I was going to be teaching Bible study this morning. So I was teaching Bible study to the ladies, the Wednesday morning ladies group. And I do that occasionally. Chris does that occasionally. Pastor Matt does that occasionally. So I was the guest teacher today, and that was fine. It was great. But the question was, why did John say he was unworthy to tie Jesus' sandals? I don't have a good answer for this because they would have been intimately familiar with each other as cousins living someplace close enough to walk to each other's homes, because we know that Mary walked to Elizabeth's when they were both pregnant. We know that the society and culture of that time was very family oriented. So why would have John said, "I cannot untie my cousin's shoes"? What was the point of that statement? And I can't figure out if he was just emphasizing the divinity of Christ or if he was making a point to the Pharisees and the Levites. Um, you have no idea how incredibly miraculous the events you're about to witness are. I'm still noodling this. Still noodling it. And I don't know yet is the answer. So, I guess we're just going to have to leave it at that for right now. We're just going to have to leave it at we are unsure of why that was said exactly. What's next? We need to Lectio Divina, the old John 1:19 through 28. We need to memorize our memory verse. I am the voice of the one calling in the wilderness. Make straight the way of the Lord. We need to start looking at John 1:19 through 28. Or really, I have that wrong in there. I didn't edit that slide. Whoops. Doug Wood, how are you? Congratulations on senior night. I watched some of the game live. I cannot believe that you and Edwin and Kai are seniors. That is wild to me. Also, congratulations on being in the Blue Chips celebration night, the 30th anniversary celebration night. That was all very cool. I hope that you are breathing in every moment of it and enjoying it, and not rushing through the last semester of your senior year. Okay, so we are going to be looking next at John 21, 29 through 34. That will be next week, even though the slide is wrong. The slide says the same thing that we studied this week, which was my bad. I just didn't get things quite organized right. Anyway, next week I'll try to be less distracted, but no guarantees. This whole having cancer thing makes my brain foggy. It also makes me not be able to multitask as well as I think I should. But here we are doing our best with what we've got. Okie dokie, folkies. I will see you next Wednesday.